Hi, hi, hi. How is everybody? Happy Wednesday. I'm so happy to be here. This is a topic that is really near and dear to my heart. And I've been having lots of conversations around this topic, both in my own business and with my clients. And so it's just super important, I think, to have this conversation. Let me just double check. Make sure that it's working. If you're live, say hi. Let me know that you're here and let me know, as always, let me know what questions you have as we go. This is always something that when I, of course, have things planned to talk about and things that I want to share around this topic, but I also create space for people's questions. So if you don't ask a question, I'll just keep talking. But if you do ask a question, I will get to you. And I would love to hear how this is resonating with you, how this is impacting your business, what's going on with you, how you experienced this in your own business, all of that. And I will introduce the topic in a moment. Hello, Tanisha. Welcome, my dear. Happy to have you. Okay, so today we're talking about evolving, and we're talking about it in a different way than really I've ever talked about it before. I always talk about evolving from the perspective of the fact that as business owners, if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur doing work that you love, the nature of entrepreneurship is that it's going to pull out of you all of your insecurities, all of your, things that you thought you'd already mastered in your mindset, all of the things that you've dealt with already in your life. Because that's just the nature, I think, of running a small business when the work that you do is so deeply personal, like heart-centered, purpose-driven, mission-driven entrepreneurs, like those of you who are in this group. And so I talk a lot about how if you want your business to evolve, you have to evolve right along with it. You've got to keep doing your mindset work. You've got to keep evolving and growing as a business owner, learning how to be better at running a business. All of these things, right, are important, I think, to evolving over time. And that's one of the things that I always talk about. And that's not quite what we're talking about today. Today, we're actually talking about evolving as an expert, evolving as the practitioner or artist or whatever it is that you do, evolving in the work itself. So I don't care if you're an accountant, a coach, a spiritual healer, an artist, an actress, whatever you are, whatever you do, whether you have a brick and mortar company, an online business, whether you serve businesses, individuals, women, men, corporations, it does not matter. We all have something that we're offering. Even if you have a product that even maybe you didn't even create, maybe you've invented something, I guess that's creating something. But maybe what you're good at is putting something out. Whatever it is that you're good at, you have a specific skill, or a set of skills. You're an expert in something. So today we're actually talking about what happens when you evolve as a practitioner, what happens over time. I have a lot of examples from my own business, and I also have a lot of examples from client businesses and other people that I have come across over the last 4 years in business. And I think personally, I just don't think this is discussed enough. In some ways, it's more discussed within industries, right? So coaches might talk about this from a coaching perspective, or people in the financial services industry might talk about it from that perspective. But this is today really I hope to cover all industries, all aspects of whatever you are a practitioner in, whatever you're an expert in, right? Because the idea is not, I think, for most of us, the idea is not, okay, I have this cool thing that I'm really good at doing. I'm going to start a business, and then I'm just going to always be really good at doing that thing, and nothing's ever going to change, right? It's not usually how we're trying to do this. The idea is that you're most likely evolving as a practitioner, as the expert that you are as well, no matter what it is that you're doing. And this can be something as simple as, taking continuing education classes. But what I want to talk more specifically today about is how do you marry that evolution as a practitioner? How do you marry that up with the evolution of your business, right? Because as I was saying before, if you are going along a trajectory, and I know this is backwards because this is a mirror. So if you're going along a trajectory, this is when you start your business and then you keep going, you're theoretically evolving as a person, right? As you go, you're also evolving as a business owner. You're getting better at running this business. You're getting better at being a business owner, better at making good decisions, blah, 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 right? You're also getting better as a practitioner, right? And then I like to look at it as your business is evolving right along with you, especially if you want to grow and scale a business. Most likely making some changes along the way is part of it. And I don't want anyone to take away from this that, you know, Laura's proposing you change something all the time. That's actually not it at all. I think things like strategy and business process, once you get them solid, can stay put for a while and then just need minor tweaks and adjustments going forward. And for sure, when you do something new, you might need a new strategy. But if you're evolving as an expert, so does your business have to evolve too. And I want to talk a little bit about it. So the kinds of things we'll talk about today is like, what if you want to put out a new offer and you want it to attract a different set of people or a different audience of people than who you've been attracting up until this point. And we're also going to cover things like, what if it's just a subset, right? Like, let's say you help women with their mindset, and now you want to help women with their mindset around relationships. It's actually a pretty big shift, but it's just a subset. It's a shift within a subset, right? So what do you do with that? Because everybody's out there telling you to niche down, but what does that mean for your existing clients, right? What if you change something? I'm sorry, I'm going to keep moving this because my neck is bothering me today. Bear with me, guys. But what do you do when you want to make a change? And so I'm talking too about like your existing customers, but what do you want to do when you want to make a change and stop doing something that you've been offering, right? What do you do with the people that have been coming to you for that, right? What's your responsibility to your clients and your customers around that? If you do niche down, that's going to mean you're excluding someone. And then what are your rules for that? Are you really going to exclude them? Are you going to exclude them just for the new people? How are you going to handle that? And then I think too, the other thing we're going to talk a lot about is how this affects your business, how you can think about this strategically, because there's the basis piece, which is just, y'all, here's my secret. You just get to live life and business the way you want. You just get to. And you get to decide and give yourself permission to do that. And this is one of those examples where I have a really good business case for doing the right thing. So the right thing in this case, my secret is you just get to do life and business your way. You just do. So that's the secret. You can stop listening if you want to. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about a business case around why that actually works in business, how that can actually help you grow your income versus not. And I think that's the mindset that a lot of people have is, shit, if I make this change, I'm going to have to kind of start over and nobody's going to come along with me. And I don't have time and energy to, start over and grow this business again, just because I'm pivoting. So yeah, I don't think I'm allowed to do that because I just don't want the trade-off. And I think honestly, that's in many cases, that's not the trade-off. It depends on the circumstances. But again, if this is just what you get to do, you just get to do what you want, what lights you up, what brings you joy, what you're really, really good at, what you like to help people with. If you just get to do that and you get to keep doing that as that changes and evolves, then the cool part is this is one of those cases like donating money to charity. You get a tax write-off. It's actually a good financial decision. This is one of those cases that like, it's actually a good financial decision to keep following your joy too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're also going to talk about mindset, right? Because I think a lot of people think this is something they can't do, or they have to wait to do, or they have to. I have a lot of conversations with clients around giving themselves permission to make these changes and to follow them, and how this actually serves your clients better. Okay, Tanisha says, I love this topic. I love it too. Okay, so let's just see how far we get. This happens sometimes, this could easily be a 2-part series, but I'm gonna give you as much as I can today. So I wanna talk a little bit about just this concept that I like to use, and you've probably seen it out and around. I think it's a Japanese term called Ikigai. It starts with an I, it's like Ikigai, something like that. And if you just Google it, you'll see online, there's like this Venn diagram. And it's this Venn diagram of overlapping circles. And in the middle is like you and your business, or you and what you're, I think this is about your purpose, but I just kind of like to look at it as your business. And it's about finding the intersection between what you're good at, what you really love to do, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. I think there may be a 5th one, but I think those are the main 4. So what you're really good at, what you love to do, right? Because those could be different. I might be good at something that I don't actually love to do, right? And then what the world needs, and then what you can get paid for. And I find so oftentimes when we're making a decision around business, particularly around making a shift or a pivot, and no matter how shifty or pivoty or small or seemingly small your pivot or your shift is, and today's conversation also includes just doing something different, completely different. But I think a lot of times when we're looking at making a shift, we think about it only from the perspective of one of those circles, which is, what can I get paid for? And what I always like to let you zoom out to is going back to the big picture diagram, which is, it's not just about like the magic in joy and in purposeful work is not just about that circle. It's not going to give you the joy by itself. It's about the intersection of what you can get paid for with what you love, with what the world needs, with what you're good at, right? So notice when you're wearing the lens of what can I get paid for, and you're only wearing the lens of what can I get paid for, because I really like to take most key business decisions from a perspective of, and this doesn't mean that you have to do everything that you love and there's nothing that, you can't have any part of your business you don't like or anything like that, right? There's always trade-offs. But if you can take the majority of what you're doing and consider that it's something that you love, it's work that you love, then, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Then I like to take key business decisions and make them from that perspective first, and then follow through with the rest of the conversation. Okay, I've chosen that I don't want to work with men and women anymore. I only want to work with women. That will light me up more. No, which by the way, this isn't me. I'm just making an example. I work with men and women, although most of my clients just happen to be women. But let's say that's just what you want to do, right? It's just who you seem to be connecting with more, and you want to start attracting more women and stop attracting men into your business. If you take that, then you get to go through the other layers of, okay, well, is this what the world needs? Is this something that I'm good at? And is this something I can get paid? And I think the paid piece is like 9 times out of 10. Now, sometimes somebody comes up with a product idea or a service that people don't really need, or it's going to be hard to get paid for. But I think in most cases, you can find a way to get paid for what you love. I don't believe that you would come up with something that you love that you couldn't also get paid for. That is a business idea. That's a sweeping generalization. So I'm sure there are exceptions. But most of the time that is the case. And when we look at it only from the perspective of what can I get paid for, that's where we get stuck in this topic of conversation, because we think that we can't or we think it'll be hard, or we think that the trade-off is more work, starting over, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so let's pretend that you want to niche down. I've got several sort of areas of this topic that I'm going to cover. If you've got questions as we go, let me know, or let me know how this impacts your business. I'd love to know specifically. So if we follow this process or this concept of, I just get to do this, right? And we'll talk a little bit about the mindset around this first, also in a little bit. But part of what I'm going to walk you through, I hope will start to chip away at that mindset that you have around, I can't even do this. Or maybe you just feel like you have to do it and you're just worried as hell how you're going to do it, right? So hopefully today will help you with this. So the first thing I like to do when people decide they want to niche down, or they decide that they want to offer a different type of service, or they just want to offer a slightly varied version of their services. So I'll give you a great example from, I've got two examples from my business. So where are we, 2022? So in 2019 and 2020, I was offering both one-on-one services and group programs. Last year, I only offered one-on-one programs. This year, I'm only offering one-on-one programs. I may pick up my group at some point again in the future. I feel that I will, but I couldn't tell you when. I've evolved into a space for this moment where that's actually what's lighting me up. And it's also what I'm finding I'm even better at right now as it stands. So that's what I'm doing. I still get people reaching out to me about Evolve, my group coaching program, right? So I could have easily said, oh my gosh, like people want to do this program. And particularly, it's funny, I have a funny, recently, the people who are reaching out to me around that are former clients who want to come back for that. Who's just kind of interesting. Maybe that's what it will evolve into. But again, I could have easily decided that I'm not allowed to do that because that's what people know me for. I've already drummed up you know, what people know me for. I've already drummed up, there we go, momentum around this, right? I'm not sure I'm allowed to just do one-on-one, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, and actually I want to talk a little bit about this too. I used to offer a variety of like mindset and spiritual and intuitive modalities. I'll just sort of lump them all in together. I used to do past life regression. I still do a little bit of hypnotherapy, but when I started my business, I was only a hypnotherapist. And then I also used to do intuitive readings. I'm an intuitive, and I used to offer readings for people. And ultimately, I stopped doing that. In fact, I only really offered it to the public for a very short period of time when I was just really looking to develop that skill more. I've always been intuitive, but I finally, several years ago, took some intuitive development classes to really beef it up and sort of like understand what was happening so that I could get more clear information coming through. And so for a little while, I was offering not just coaching, but I was offering also doing readings. I don't do readings anymore. I still have people reach out to me to do readings. It's just not what I want to be doing. And I'll talk about it in a couple of other examples. But again, my point is that this can also just be about not offering a modality that you used to offer. This can be about making a different offer than what you used to, and full permission to do this, right? I had a hair stylist years ago who used to do my hair and my color back in the days, and I used to highlight my hair. And then one day she was like, yeah, I don't want to do color anymore. I'm really good at cutting hair. I'm decently good at color, but I don't love it. So I'm going to evolve in my specialty around cutting hair, and I'm going to have one of my colleagues do your color. Well, I got really attached to her doing my color because she knew what I loved, and she was actually really good at doing my color. So I lost that, right? But it's fine. Like I got somebody else who was also really good, and she continued to evolve as a hairstylist and absolutely upped her game in the cutting area aspect of it, the styling area aspect of it, because that's what she chose to focus on, right? And she gets to just decide that. I might have been disappointed, but I didn't stop going to her, first off, which might have been her fear. So this is simply also an opportunity to use as an example, just offering something new or discontinuing an offer. Or for those of you like coaches and healers who have a variety of modalities, what if you have a subset of clients who come to you for a specific modality that you don't really want to offer anymore? Or like, I'll give you an example of my hypnosis. I only use hypnosis like as a, like I've got a smattering of tools in my toolkit back here, right? I used to do past life regressions. I could still do that. I don't really. It's not like I've decided never to do them again, but it's just not like the thing that I think to do. But I might have a client as I'm working with them, and I might naturally, because I've been trained in all of this and because I've worked with clients in all of these modalities, I might decide to pull out the tool one day and do some hypnosis with someone. Or I might decide to do some past life regression therapy work. I doubt it, but I might, right? But it's all there for me to decide what to choose from. That's different than somebody raising their hand and saying, Laura, somebody told me that past life regression is really cool. I'd love to do that. In those cases, I say to someone, awesome, I've got several colleagues of mine that are really, really good, and I'd love to send them to you, because that's not my specialty. It's something I can do, but it's not my specialty. It's something I used to do, but I've evolved as an expert into the stuff that I'm actually even better at and that really lights me up. And so that's where I want to get to this other concept, right? So I just want to say that all of these types of things are on the table for today, no matter what it is. If you're niching down, if you're opening, this happens a lot. I have several clients that have opened new businesses with a different focus. If you're changing your offer, whatever it is, if you're discontinuing something, if you're just not really focusing on a certain modality or not even selling around that modality, right? Okay, so there's this concept that I want to just sort of offer, which is like, if you have work, let's just go ahead and assume that pretty much everybody in this group or anybody listening to this video, let's just go ahead and assume that you have work that you love, that you created a business around this work that you wanted to offer to the world, and that you're good at it. Okay, probably really freaking good at it. It's probably your zone of genius, or some element of your work probably taps into your zone of genius, right? So if that's our baseline assumption, this is where I want you to understand from the mindset perspective, full permission. Just because something falls in this bucket that we've created does not mean you have to do it, right? So I don't know why I always go back to bookkeeping, but like, let's pretend you're a bookkeeper and you have skills as an accountant, and you also could do people's taxes, but you choose to be a bookkeeper only. Full permission. You just get to do that. You don't have to justify it to anyone. You just get to do that, right? So just because something like taxes might be in that bucket does not mean that you have to do it. You get to decide every little piece as an expert around what it is that you want to be doing, what it is that you feel like you're really good at, what it is that really lights you up to serve people around. And usually those things are the same. Meaning, so the point I wanted to make with my little bucket here is that if you're already in a bucket of work that you love, it's also okay. I don't love like a scale of 1 to 10, but I'm going to use it here because I think it's really important to take a simple concept to explain this. If in this bucket is all the work that I love and that I'm good at, I'm also allowed to not do the stuff that on a scale of 1 to 10 is like 1 to 5. right? So I might still love the thing that I'm rating 1 to 5 because the whole bucket is something I love and something I'm good at. But what I encourage people to do over time, you don't have to jump to 10 all the time, but that over time, you're paying attention to what lights you up, what you're really good at. And sometimes if you don't know, just think about like, okay, I'm going to take some continuing education. What is it that I want to take it on? That's usually your indicator of like, okay, this is something you actually like geek out about that you want to take to the next level. Within that, full permission to not just do something you're good at and not just do something that you love, but to do something that within that space really, really, really is a 10 within that concept, within that bucket. Does that make sense? Let me know if this is making sense. And it's really important to say that this is not about, well, let me say it this way. I think it's really important to say that what feels like a 10 to you today may not feel like a 10 to you next year, or may not feel like a 10 to you in 6 months as a practitioner. Unapologetically, that's just the way it is. And I find that most people who really are in their genius, most people who are really honing their skills, continuing to hone their skills, even though they're already really good at something, even though they're already an expert, because it's just what drives them, right? This is for most of you, this is a passion of yours, maybe not the one and only passion. I don't really love the whole purpose, this is your purpose. I have multiple purposes, one of which is being served with this business. But if that's what's driving you, if I find that most people that are really in their zone of genius, they do evolve, they do grow. What they put out changes over time. It's intended to. It's actually intended to. And so for you to keep growing your genius in something is the point, is necessary, is desired. And so this is more just like, so what do you like, how do you handle that in your business and how do you talk to people about it, right? So full permission to recognize over time that what feels like a 10 today may not feel like a 10 next year. That's just the nature of the beast. That's not you changing your mind. Excuse me, that's not you being wishy-washy. That's not you not knowing what you want. A lot of my clients will say, I just don't have clarity. And in this case, like, yeah, you do. You absolutely have clarity. You just think that something that you had full clarity on a year ago was supposed to stay put. And that's not always the case. I feel like I need to say that again. Just because you had full clarity a year ago. So I'm going to use myself as an example. Just because when I was doing group work and one-on-one work, I will tell you back then, I had full clarity that I really liked. I talked about this in last week's live. I really liked the balance of having both one-on-one and group. I really liked the variety. I would not have in that moment been satisfied with one or the other. What lit me up the most, what was in my bucket of 8, 9, 10 was to have both. So I had full clarity. It's not like I lost clarity along the way. No, I just evolved. And what was in my 8, 9, 10 was no longer the idea of running a group. What 8, 9, 10 was grabbing me was I wanted to open up more and more and more spaces for one-on-one clients, because that was the thing that just still to this day lights me up. I love going deep with my clients. Love it. And I go deep with my groups as well, but I was wanting more. And that was my indicator that it was time to pause on the group and focus on one-on-one, right? Okay, so a couple of just how do you do it? And then we're gonna get back to mindset, because I think 9 times out of 10, this is really more around mindset, but a little more practical things I wanna share, because I think this is where some people can't give themselves permission because they just, either they haven't seen it done or they don't know how to execute a change. And again, this is, it's a little bit hard to talk about the how when I'm trying to cover all aspects of changes and tweaks. But I think some of these will apply for many people. The other thing I want to say is actually, I spoke to a couple of artists about this concept too over the years, and the two, at least two, maybe more, but the two that are coming to mind, they also spoke about this, right? And I think when you think, for me as a business owner who's not an artist, and you certainly do not want me to paint you a painting, even though I do paint, I love it. It's just for me. I think those of us who are not artists or who don't recognize as much the creative side of us, we're more likely to give permission like this to someone who is an artist, right? So I know someone who was started as a photographer and then moved into painting and then sort of added other things, but their primary service, primary offering, if you will, God, what's the word? Media. Oh my God, what's the word? Anyway, the primary thing is painting. People may want them to continue taking photographs because maybe they deeply resonated with the photographs, but somehow we feel more okay with letting an artist evolve their work because they're artists. You can't hem in an artist. You can't, like, they're just going to do what they do. They create stuff. Sometimes it started off as photography and now it's painting, and like that's just what they do. Like, we're more likely to we're also more likely to give other people permission than we give ourselves, right? But we're more likely to give an artist that permission. And so my argument then to you is, okay, great, your business is a work of art. Your business is a creative endeavor, so you get that full permission too. Okay, so however you want to look at it. So for some people, I think the reason they are afraid to move forward, and so now we're getting into the how, is because they don't know how. And I want to offer that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. For most people, it's a lot easier. Depends on your circumstance. It's a lot easier to do it in some sort of transition. So, let me think of an example. So, okay, I'm going to give a quick example about myself. So let's go back to the intuitive readings. Oh, I thought my phone was off. Let's go back to the intuitive readings. I used to offer those on their own. I also, for a little while, for my clients that have been with me for a very, very, very long time, I was incorporating more like reading style aspects into my coaching sessions with people. So I was doing a real mixture of coaching, hypnotherapy, and intuitive channeling. And that worked for me really well. It just sort of became almost like I was talking a minute ago, like having that toolkit behind me and just like grabbing what tool I needed, and it was sort of seamless, and it really became everything, all the different tools just kind of became integrated for me in my coaching style. And so just what I needed in the moment is what popped out. But what happened over time is that I moved, instead of, how do I say this? Instead, with the intuitive aspect of things, instead of having a client ask me a question for the purpose of me channeling and giving an answer or giving a response. I don't even like answer, because even the guides I worked with were very coachy. They were not very like, let me just give you the answer. That style evolved out of my coaching style. And I now, instead of like Q&A style coaching, which was always only a subset of the coaching style I've ever done, it was never my primary style, but it was an element of it. So what happened was that sort of evolved out, and now I use my intuition simply to help me be a better coach, right? To helps me in my expertise. I use what I'm feeling energetically. I use the downloads that I receive to support my clients. And sometimes I'll tell them directly, the word I'm hearing for you right now is, or the thing I'm feeling really strongly for you is, right? But that's different. I still have more, it's more for me, it's a more a behind the scenes thing. That's probably the best way to say it. It's more a behind the scenes thing than a direct Q&A response type thing. And so as I evolved that, and it just sort of became like some of my clients, if they didn't know, might not even know I'm an intuitive. It's all over my stuff, but they might not know because I'm not always, saying, I'm not like directly channeling something. And so it's just something that absolutely is a part of my genius, is part of my expertise, is part of why some of my clients hire me and why I'm good at what I do. It's one of the pieces, but it's not as obvious, right? It's just sort of something that's happening. But some of my clients were using that modality more because they were used to it, because it was something I was marketing, because I was talking about it, and because I was using it. And so while they were around for the progression, there was a point where I had to have some conversations with them and say, like, if this is what you're looking for from me going forward, I need to refer you out, because it's and what happened for me, here's another great example of evolving as an expert, is it became really, really hard for me to only do the channeling, like to do a type of a reading, which is why, for those of you who've been around a long time, why I'm not doing intuitive readings in the group. I've got a substitute for that. So stay tuned. I'll make an announcement at the end. But that's why I'm one of the things, it doesn't light me up as much as using that intuition in my own sort of unique style of coaching. But my style of coaching has just evolved and it's changed, and it just kind of happened very organically. And there's nothing I can do about it. I'm good at what I do because I do it in the way that works for me. And I found that I was feeling forced at the end of when I was doing that with some of my old long-term clients, because I was only letting myself use one modality, right? If I'm an artist, I'm only letting myself be creative in photography. And that didn't light me up, and it was feeling stifling. And I was feeling that I wasn't able to help my clients as much or to be as effective as a coach, because I was trying to sort of change back and forth, right? So my style had just evolved into a different style. Style is the only word I can think of. But all that is to say, if we go back to the how, you don't have to necessarily decide that it's all or nothing. So when I made that decision around the intuitive stuff, I could have said, I'm going to call all my clients today and tell them I'm done. And if you don't want the way that I want to do it, then you're out. And I'm going to stop doing the readings in the group and blah, 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 blah. Right? That could have been a choice that I made. That's not the choice that I made. I actually made the decision first around new clients. And I did not, when I was having conversations with new clients, I did not speak to them and market myself or highlight that as a selling point. I do, some sort of element of reading style coaching in my coaching sessions, right? So I just started removing that and speaking more clearly about the new and evolved way that I provide coaching, which really honestly is easier to talk about because my coaching style just looks like coaching. And people think they know, everybody's different, but people think they know what coaching is, right? So that's just not a thing I had to really describe. So number one, I just changed how I talked about what I do. And I made a decision that if a new client walked in and wanted that style coaching, I would let them know that that wasn't really how I do it anymore. And so I started by transitioning and just saying from now on, new clients are going to be in the new way, right? So this is if you're niching down and you're working with men and women. This doesn't mean you have to call all your male clients and say, peace, brother, right? You could just say, I'm not going to accept any more men. And then you get to decide next level. There's so many ways you can transition. Then you can decide, okay, when are my men up for renewal? And am I going to renew them? Or am I just only going to renew them? And from that, and whenever they're gone, right? You get to decide. what you want. And you can do it gradually. So same if you're, or maybe I could have decided that I would only continue that style with existing clients and not with the new ones. That's one thing you can do. A lot of times when people raise their prices, they either keep the prices the same for their existing clients and that they raise the prices for new people, or they give their existing clients a discount. So this could even be about changing your pricing. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I encourage you to, if you're making a change that feels big to you, that's another reason to make it in some sort of a transition so that you can kind of get used to the idea, update your marketing materials, whatever it is that you need to do. It gives you an opportunity to do that. So if it's something like my transition, my change, a transition sometimes is very helpful. The other example I want to share, I've got a few clients now who have just in the last year or so either started or moved focus to their second business. And that creates a lot as well around, and it's not all that different than making a change in what you offer, because if you're going to be running two businesses instead of one, there's no way in hell you can be there at business number one for all the same stuff that you used to do. And that is a real challenge. It's actually one of the things that I've really enjoyed about last year. For some reason, that's who I ended up attracting last year. I think I had three or four clients who were kind of in that similar bucket of more than one business and trying to shift and transition. And I think too, the getting clear about your percentage of time and how you're going to spend on how much time you want to spend on certain things is also really helpful. And you can also think about like what lights you up in that bucket of 10, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, 10 is another way to look at it. So thinking about, like we were talking about transitioning, like from a services perspective, the other thing you might think about when you're looking to make a change like this is, what does this mean for my time and how I spend my time and where I spend my time and what I spend my time on, and how are those percentages changing, and how can you transition? If it's another business, how can you transition that business to be supported by someone that's not you for the stuff you're not going to do? But just in general, what is it that you need to do in your calendar, and what does that shift even look like practically speaking? I think is really helpful to do, to just get to the nitty-gritty of calendar. Like, what does this change, this niche down, this new offer mean for my schedule? Because, for example, let's say in the second half of this year, I decide to add my group back. Okay, cool. Where in my schedule is it going to go? What is going to give, right? Because I have a full set of one-on-one clients and I'm going to add a group. How am I going to do that? I got to think that through, right? So sometimes the how is actually really boring, and it means looking at your calendar. I actually really love, I can't believe I'm saying this, people who know me really well are going to laugh at me when I say this, because I really am, I really do, like, my personal style is much more creative, fly by the seat of my pants, non-structured, non-planning. I live really well in that space, but my business is actually really structured. And I love helping my clients look at their schedule. Like, it's because you can see somebody's mindset in there. You can see their priorities, whether they realize it. Your priorities are reflected in your schedule. You can see so much in the schedule, and you can change so much in the way that you feel about your work day to day when you make changes to your schedule. It's really just magical. Okay, Tanisha says, how do you know you're evolving to something different because it's time and not because you're fearful that you're not succeeding? That is a great point. And I think that's where, Tanisha, there's a lot of introspection. And this is where I think it's helpful to work with a coach, work with a colleague, talk to friends and family, to try to get down to what's really happening. Because but I do think here's one of the differences, Tanisha. Sometimes we go, oh, well, I'm just going to evolve into doing this. Are you following joy? Or are you just kind of scrambling and trying to do something else because the first thing didn't work, or your perspective is that the first thing didn't work, right? What I find is that the more time you spend, and not with blinders on, there's always a moment where you might have to adjust your strategy. But the more time you spend on one single simple strategy, the easier it is to book clients with that simple single strategy versus, especially when you're starting off, versus adding like, I'm going to do TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, and then I'm going to go over here, and then I'm going to go over here, right? You're dispersing your energy and you're trying to grow like 8 different audiences. Whereas when you put all your time and energy into one audience at a time, then it's easier to get traction and momentum. And so to that point, like if that's kind of where your brain is, and this happens to all of us, and it doesn't just happen to startup people, it happens to people with established businesses all the time, where we think, okay, this isn't working. And really, what is working, right? Like just because it hasn't turned the way you want it to in the time that you want it to, then sometimes it is really easy for the brain to go, great, so I'm just going to evolve and be creative and do something else and just ignore or distract myself from the fact that I don't really know how to get this piece of my business running the way I want it to, generating income, bringing in clients, whatever it is. So I think that's typically what it is. It's like, if you're following the joy and following the creativity, that is usually the driver. And I think the other piece of that you're making me think of, Tanisha, is sometimes those of us who are super creative, which is most of us, we can get caught in a creative space that pulls us away from the strategic or practical aspects of our business. And if you're not making the money that you want to make, I think that's where it's important to allow yourself to make some tough choices, allow yourself the trade-off of, I'm going to dedicate this amount of time to sales and marketing because I'm determined to make this business bring in the money that I want it to. And even though I want to spend that extra time, you know, in creation, in creating, artists particularly have this problem because they can just go, right? Yeah, I'm going to first make something and then sell it, and then I can make more stuff. I mean, and that's not to say that you have to be that rigid, but it's about prioritizing your time. If it's important to you to make more money, I think it's really important to make sure that you're spending back to calendaring, you're actually spending the time in your day focused on those activities, those sales and marketing activities to get you that. And then of course, give yourself time for creativity, but that's a little bit different. Tanisha says, love it when I can feel it in my calendar. Yep. I'm finding I'm adding to because of the joy and fulfilled feeling I have. Yep. Yep, exactly. So then it doesn't sound like you're doing it from a space of fear, Tanisha. I do think there is a piece around that, Tanisha, you're kind of tapping into a little bit around, you do have to find, and I've talked about it in a second, but like, I do think it's helpful to find the right balance for you based on where you are in your business around creating new stuff and just selling what you have, which is a little bit what I was saying before, but I just wanted to sort of say it a little bit differently, right? I have several ideas for this business that I would like to create sometime, but my focus right now is my current one-on-ones. My focus right now is I actually have been able to, because of my amazing team, open up some more spaces to serve more clients this year than I served last year. For me, what's considered fully booked has changed, and I'm able to open up more space, which is in part why I'm offering the free coaching sessions. If you haven't taken me up on it, please do. And so it is important to keep that balance between wanting to create something new and saying, actually though, but my priority first, I have all these priorities, one of which is creating new stuff, but my creating new stuff is a lower level priority than serving more clients this year. So that's my focus. That's what I'm going to focus on first. And then once I fill those new slots, I will look at my time and I'll see what space I have to create next, right? So I get to decide that, but I chose that's the level. That my one-on-one clients is a higher priority than my creating of something new. And I'm not saying that's the way it needs to be, but that's the way it is for me now. You might decide that there's a moment where you need to change it. Biggest battle. Yep. I think you're not alone, my dear. Welcome to entrepreneurship. It's a balance, and you have to find the right balance in the moment. Okay. The other thing I want to just share is before we go, I think you're always, there's this sort of concept of like, but can I attract the right people if I make a shift? And again, I'm not advocating that you change all the time, but I am advocating that you honor yourself in this process. And here's my business case argument for you. What's good for you is good for your business, and therefore is also good for your audience. What's good for you is good for your business, and therefore is also what's good for your audience, which basically means if you're going to allow yourself the permission to keep evolving as a practitioner, you're probably going to be better. You're probably going to be even more in your zone of genius. You're probably going to be an even more amazing service provider or product creator, which just means that you're better at what you do, which means you can charge more for what you offer. People are going to be attracted to you because you're really just high vibing in the zone of genius within your genius, right? Like that 8, 9, 10 space. The more you can stay in that space, the more you allow yourself. And this is most of this conversation too is around like when you're feeling called. When you allow yourself to follow that, it's always going to come back to you. It's always going to come back to you. It doesn't mean you have to do, a stop and a start. You can do a transition, but what is good for you is good for your clients, right? So what if I continued over time to offer that intuitive service in the way that I used to? How am I actually serving my client? I'm not, because I'm not owning my role as an expert to say, you're looking for a business coach. You hired me to be a business coach. I'm here to coach you through your entrepreneurial journey, but I'm going to do it the way you want me to. Right? I'm the expert. I'm the coach. That's why they're coming to me. It's my responsibility, actually, to give them the best of my best, to give them the best that I have to offer. And if I had stayed and forced myself to stay in that old style, once I realized that it was happening that way, honestly, I think I have an ethical obligation to my clients to not stay with that, right? Even though we have this fear and we have this concept of the customer always being right and like wanting to always please our customers. And I'm not saying don't serve your clients, but it's actually my job. And being a coach this is an easier one to explain, but I think this is the case for everyone, no matter what your expertise is. I have a job to serve my client in the best way I can. So that means that when I see something that they're doing and it's based on a pattern of behavior, it's my responsibility as a coach to tell them that, to show them that. They might be mad at me. I've made my clients mad before. That's okay. It's not about me, right? But that's my obligation. It's my job to coach them in the best way that I can. And so to hold back is actually not being the expert that I am. And that's doing my client a disservice. So where in that can you apply that concept of holding back is doing your client a disservice? What's good for you is good for your business, which also means that it's good for your clients. Where can you allow that to help you shift your mindset around? I can't, people are going to be disappointed, because the truth is, if you're really serving people, you have an obligation to give them your best. So if I'm a painter and I used to do photography, but I'm really evolving into being more of a painter, I owe my customers the best freaking art I can create. And I get to decide what that is because I'm the expert. Tanisha saying, yes, yes, having learned that being true to oneself is best. Absolutely. And again, it's not up to the outside people to tell you who you are or how to be good at what you're good at, right? That's up to you. That's your job. I want to, two famous people examples that I want to share because I think it also helps us just give ourselves permission. One is how many artists, and I'm thinking musical artists in this example, but you can probably follow actors and actresses too. How many like musical artists have put out albums and they're super popular and everybody loves them, and then they put an album out of a different genre or an album out that's a little bit different than their norm, right? They evolve as artists. And then all the critics are like, this is total shit, blah, blah, blah. It's so not Lady Gaga, or it's so not, you know, whoever. Lady Gaga did that. She really has evolved over the years and her music has really changed. The Beatles really changed over the years. The Stones, maybe. I think it's just interesting to think about it from that perspective because again, we're more likely to give an artist permission to keep evolving, but in truth, like think about them, like worrying about their following and are people going to not like their stuff? And then you're playing all that out on a public stage, right? Like it's a real thing that everybody has to deal with in one way, shape or form. But man, the Beatles would have been doing us a disservice if they had put out the same kind of stuff the whole time that they were creating music. They would have done us a disservice. They obviously would have done themselves a disservice because they wouldn't have enabled their full levels of creativity, right? And then the other example I want to give is one of my favorites lately to quote is Steve Jobs. I read his biography over the holidays, and I'm a huge Jobs fan. He was not the most diplomatic deliverer of information, and he had lots of temper tantrums, but he was a freaking genius. And I think he was very brilliant also in the way that he ran his business, and a lot of his business values line up with mine. So anyway, he is not perfect, but he talked about, now think about what he was putting together. He was very innovative. He was creating things that didn't exist. Like we didn't know what to do with an iPhone when it came out, right? We did not know what to do with it. And I think he made a comment at one point about people, they were getting ready to put out a new product and someone told him, you know, like what people want. And he said, well, people want, you know, a product that's going to do this, and people want a product that's going to do that, like these tactical things, right? That they're used to products doing, that they're used to computers doing. And Steve said, people don't know what they want. And I thought that was so brilliant. And you know, where can you apply that to yourself and your customers and your clients? And this isn't about like, you know, people don't know stuff. People know part of what they want, or they know like what their problems are, or they know how they'd like to feel, but they don't always know how to get there, right? And with the innovation of what Steve Jobs created, you know, the products that he put out, we never could have conceived of them until we had them. And then we realized, right, okay, now we got dependent on them. So then we realized we wanted them. And I think it was just so brilliant. Like in my example with the discontinuing the reading style stuff, again, like my clients wanted what was working for them because they were getting results and they were getting help and they were feeling good and they were being well coached with my old style. And so they might have thought that that was what they wanted. But I think the truth is what they wanted, thank you for the hearts, what they wanted is actually a coach to support them. What they wanted is to keep feeling good about running a business. What they wanted is to scale their business. What they wanted is to figure out how to deal with their team issues. What they wanted is to figure out how to really spend time in that second business and to transition out of the first business day to day. What they really wanted is to feel confident in their decisions. What they really wanted is a strategy that actually made sense for their business and their team that was easy to execute, right? That's what they really wanted. And that has nothing to do with the modality that I'm using. That's just what I help my clients with, right? So do you see the difference? So where can you ask yourself, or not ask yourself, where can you look at your business and apply this concept of, I'm going to stop assuming that I know what my customers want, what my clients want, because a lot of that gets then jumbled up in the how. And it's not really their business to decide what modalities, right? Whatever that means in your business, what modalities I use. My job is to serve them, to help them solve their problem, right? Or to help them create X, to help them to feel Y. That's your job. And it's your job, actually, as the expert, you're responsible for your continuing education credits, right? You're responsible for any training you need to take. You're responsible for evolving over time. You're responsible for making tough choices and saying, I'm going to do this and not that. You're responsible as the expert to just simply be that, to be the expert. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I've got a couple other things I want to say, but I will try to smoosh them into other lives. I've got a couple of announcements. God, more than two. So first off, next week's live, I'm going to be doing something very similar to what I did last year. So I want to talk just for a minute or two about the shift in, last year I did the intuitive readings here in the group. Super, super fun. This is also related to this topic. Super fun. It was also really, really, really popular. And because of the evolution that I made as an expert last year, this was the hardest one for me to let go of, by the way, was doing this reading in this group. But what I basically decided was, for all the reasons that I discussed earlier today, but also because I felt that strategically, if I'm offering you guys in the group this thing, but I don't actually give that thing to my clients, that felt like over time, it's just going to be misaligned. And so this is a great example. I'm modeling for you, like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I don't channel Q&A style stuff with my clients. So if I'm doing that here in the group, can you see how that might create confusion around what I do and what I offer? To my knowledge, it's never actually created confusion, but also the evolution that I created in myself as an expert kind of happened around the time that I just let go of these sessions anyway. So I'm not sure that I had time for that to be confusing, but it would be. And it's almost like marketing myself as something that I'm not anymore, right? However, here's the thing, guys. This was one of the most popular things I did in this Facebook group, right? So I let go of the thing that was a guarantee, 10, 15, 20, 25 person live every week, right? I could have easily decided to give into the fear and stay with it because I need it. But it just did not feel aligned to me. And so at the same time, so that was me honoring me. At the same time, I honor you. I absolutely love this group. I was enjoying the events too, by the way. Like, it wasn't something that felt heavy. It just didn't, again, I just evolved past to a different space. But what I want and will plan to keep now is I want to be offering different events where we can have that opportunity to connect as a community. What I loved was that was when everybody came to the group, to the live, they came live to the live. We got a deeper sense of community. People were commenting on each other's stuff, and people were getting direct coaching from me. And that was the other thing that I wanted to provide. So really, and here's a great example of, like, sometimes the offer doesn't look all that different. And this is what I'm going to offer to you guys now. And I'm going to just try it out next week and see how it goes. But rather than doing a once a month intuitive reading, I'm going to play around with doing a once a month event. It might look like this one next week, and it might look different. But next week, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to offer free coaching. So in many ways, it's not going to look all that different than the free intuitive readings that we did at once a month, right? You bring a question that you want coaching on, I will give you what I think for you. It may or may not be that I channel something for you, right? But again, these are super, super nuanced spaces, but my clients, my audience still gets to come to these events and get free guidance. That's really what they're looking for, right? it's my responsibility to offer it in a way that's right for me. So come next Wednesday, same time, same place. I will get to as many questions as I can, and I will give you coaching on whatever is up for you. And we'll just see how it feels. So please give me your feedback afterwards. Tanisha says she will be there. I'm so excited to see you there, my dear. And I'm really, really excited just to get back to these events. I already wasn't going to do them, or I already couldn't do them in November and December because they fell on the last Wednesday of the month, and those were holidays last year in the last 2 months. So I'm excited. I knew it was time to do something a little different, and we're just going to play with this and see how it goes. I may do some special trainings the last Wednesday of the month instead. We'll just see how it goes. But again, this is one opportunity where hopefully, and by the way, it's kind of funny. I made this decision after I had already decided to share this live topic with you. So it's kind of funny how the timing is. So next Wednesday, live coaching, join, get your questions answered, come early, pop your questions in. Please stay online. Please don't come in and pop your questions in and leave. I understand everybody's busy, but I oftentimes will ask follow-up questions or need a little clarification. And so, and I'm not channeling information, so I might need a little more information from you in order to give you my thoughts from a coaching perspective. The other thing is I am still offering my free sessions. As I said, I've opened up some additional slots, which I'm so excited about, to be able to 90% of my clients right now are renewing. And so part of my challenge has been, how do I keep growing my audience? How do I keep serving more people? Because I love my clients and they keep renewing, and I love that. And I love deep relationships with my clients, but I also want to be able to be available to new people, new to me. So I'm excited. I've got a few coaching slots open for people who are looking for one-on-one coaching. And if you want to play around with that, just hop on a free session, free call with me. It's actually not a discovery call, what I'm offering. It is actual free coaching. So I'll put the link in the comments here as well. And I feel like I had another announcement, but I think that's all. If you have questions, please feel free to DM me. Put your questions here. Also, if you're watching the replay, put them here and I will come back. And I so look forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday for our community event. And I will see you then. Thank you, Tanisha, for joining live. Great to see you, and have a great week, everybody.